On New Year's Eve, I asked, "Is there a spot for us at the table?" My dad said, "Seats are for important people." My brother laughed. "Stand and watch like always." I quietly left. The next afternoon, he called me shaking. "I need $14,000 immediately." I whispered back, "Happy New Year. Ask the important people." And then, it's a strange kind of pain hearing things like that from the people you grew up with, the people who know your laugh, your old bedrooms, your worst mistakes. You don't expect kindness from strangers, but your own family that hits differently. All I wanted was for us to be together. That was it. Just one evening, one meal, one night, where I wouldn't have to explain to my kids why we always feel like guests in the place I once called home. I'd been asking for 2 weeks. "Can we come by for New Year's? Do you want me to bring dessert or drinks? Should I pick up something for the kids?" Every message got short answers. Pulled distant, like they were doing me a favor by even replying. But I still convinced myself I was reading too much into it. I wanted it to work out for the twins. Lily and Jonah had been talking about seeing their cousins all week. I let them help me make the casserole, the same one Mom used to ask for every year. They picked out matching little outfits, wrapped gifts in shiny paper, and kept peeking out the window to see if it was time to go yet. We arrived around 6. There were 10 cars in the driveway. I should have known. Inside, the house was loud, warm, music playing, people drinking wine and laughing. My mom's table was glowing with candles and silverware. Every seat was taken. My parents, both of my brothers and their wives, their kids, even a couple of neighbors, full plates, open wine bottles, happy chaos, but no plates for us, not even space. I stood there, holding the casserole dish, my kids close behind me. No one looked up. I said, "Is there a spot for us at the table?" My dad didn't even flinch. "Seats are for important people." Mark, standing next to the fireplace, burst out laughing. "Stand and watch like always." Everyone kept eating. That was it. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I put the casserole on the counter, took my kids by the hand, and we walked back out. The cold air hit harder than I expected. We ended up in a booth at a diner off Route 9. A waitress in a New Year's headband brought the kids chocolate milk. I let them eat waffles with ice cream. They thought it was the best night ever. I watched the fireworks through the windshield while they slept in the back seat, still holding their gift bags. The next day, around 3, 0 inches the afternoon, I got a call from Mark. I didn't pick up at first. Then I saw he called again and again. I finally answered. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't say a word about the night before. He just said, voice shaking, "Kelly, I need $14,000 right now. It's life or death." I stayed quiet. He kept talking, something about a collapsed lung and uninsured procedure paperwork gone wrong. The hospital refusing to go forward unless they paid half up front. He said Mom and Dad couldn't do it. Natalie had maxed out their credit cards. He was desperate. I whispered, "Happy New Year, Mark. Ask the important people." Then I hung up. 5 minutes later, Mom called, then Natalie, then Dad. My phone kept buzzing for hours. Missed calls, voicemails, texts piling up. I didn't answer any of them. And that's when I knew I was only invisible, until they needed something. Then, suddenly, I was family again. But not because they missed me. Not because they loved me. Because they were sinking. And they thought I'd be the one to save them. By the end of the first week, I stopped counting how many times my phone rang. Mark, Natalie, Mom, Dad, everyone who had ignored me the night of New Year was now blowing up my phone like we were best friends. Every voicemail was urgent. Every text sounded like a countdown. At one point, Natalie even sent one that said, "If he dies, it'll be on your conscience." They didn't even pretend to care about what happened. Not one of them mentioned the table, the empty plates, the look on my kids' faces when we left. All of that was erased, like it never happened, as if none of it mattered now that their backs were against the wall. I stayed quiet. I didn't answer, didn't reply, but I listened to every voicemail. Mark left one that sounded like he hadn't slept in days. He said, "I know I haven't been the best brother. I know I messed up, but this isn't about pride or grudges. This is life or death. They won't operate unless we pay. I wouldn't be asking if I had any other option. It shook me, not because I believed he changed, but because despite everything, he was still my brother. And then Natalie sent the photo. Mark in a hospital gown, lying half upright in a bed, tubes in his nose. His eyes were closed. The message under it just said, $14,000 or they sent him home. No hi, no context. Just that. I stared at it for minutes, then locked my phone, then unlocked it again. I don't even know how long I sat there going back and forth in my head. I kept hearing my dad's voice from the night before. Seats are for important people. And Mark laughing. But now he was the one on the edge, and I was the only one left to hold the rope. I didn't sleep that night. I got up early, dropped the kids at school, and went to the bank. I transferred $7,000. Huff. That was more than I'd ever spent on anything that wasn't related to my children. But I did it. I called my mother to tell her. She sounded relieved, but cold. Not a single thank you. Just asked when the rest would come. I said there was no rest. That was it. She hung up. Mark called me that night. He said, "Thank you, Kelly. Seriously, you saved my life. I'm going to pay you back. I swear, as soon as I'm out of here." He didn't sound like he was lying, but I didn't let myself feel anything. 2 weeks passed. The surgery was successful. Natalie posted a long, dramatic update on Facebook full of hearts and hashtags and words like miracle and gratitude. She wrote, "We've made it through the storm. Thank you for all the prayers and support. Family really is everything." I read it 3 times. My name wasn't there. My help wasn't mentioned. To the outside world, I didn't exist. I was just a shadow standing outside the glow of their perfect little world. I gave them a few more weeks. I didn't ask for the money right away. I told myself maybe they were still recovering. Maybe they needed time. Then one afternoon, I sent a polite message, just checking in. "Do you know when you'll be able to return the $7,000? Things are getting a little tight on my end." It was marked seen. No reply. I waited 2 more days. Then I asked again. This time, Natalie replied. She said they were going through a lot, that Mark was still out of work, and things were emotionally draining. She said she hoped I could be understanding during this fragile chapter of healing. Then she asked if I could help just a little bit more to cover some new medications and extra rehab costs. "Only a couple thousand," she said, "just to get us over the hump." That was the moment it clicked. They never planned to pay me back. To them, I wasn't a sister. I wasn't family. I was a wallet they forgot they had. And now that they'd found it again, they thought they could keep reaching in whenever they wanted. I wrote one word back. No. No explanations, no emotion, just a closed door. I could already imagine what they'd say about me. That I was selfish, that I didn't care if Mark died, that I was bitter and vengeful and holding grudges over something so small, like a family dinner. But I knew the truth. I had raised 2 kids on my own. I had worked 2 jobs. I had survived 2 years of being iced out by my own blood. I wasn't heartless, but I wasn't stupid either. And if they thought they could take from me and disappear, well, they were about to learn what happens when the unimportant one finally says no. After I told Natalie no, I expected silence. But what I got was worse. From feelings of my mom. "I heard you refuse to help again. We're all struggling, Kelly. Maybe think of someone other than yourself for once." That was the word she used again. Selfish. Like I hadn't already drained half my emergency savings for the same people who didn't even save me a seat at the table. I didn't reply. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Later that week, Natalie showed up at my doorstep uninvited. I saw her through the peephole, holding a box of bakery cookies and wearing this tight, forced smile. I opened the door just enough to hear her. She said she just wanted to talk, that they were in a really desperate spot, and that she was sorry things had gotten tense. She handed me the cookies like that would make it all okay. Then she got to the point again, asking for more money. This time, $5,000. For Mark's continued recovery. Said he wasn't bouncing back like they'd hoped. Said the hospital bills were stacking up and the insurance had pulled something shady. I stood there in silence, not moving, not speaking. She kept going. She said something like, "You have the ability to help. I don't know why you're punishing us." That's when I shut the door. 2 days later, Mark called. He didn't ask this time, he demanded. Said I owed him for saving me from a lot worse years ago, whatever that meant. Said family steps up. Said if roles were reversed, he'd have given me everything. Took everything in me not to laugh. Instead, I said, "You won't see another cent." The next day, it got even uglier. My parents called a family meeting at their house. Told me I needed to come and talk this through face to face. I didn't want to go. I knew it would be a trap, but something in me wanted to see just how far they'd go. So I went. I left Lily and Jonah with a neighbor and drove over after dinner. When I walked in, it felt like an intervention. Everyone was sitting around the living room. Mom, Dad, Mark, Natalie, like some twisted family court. They didn't even pretend it was about making peace. My mom opened with, "We think it's time you stop holding this money over everyone's head." I didn't say a word, just sat there and let them unravel. My dad said it made no sense that I couldn't spare a few thousand more, considering I didn't have a mortgage or a husband to support. Mark chimed in about how we all carry each other, and Natalie pulled out a notebook of itemized expenses as if I was some bank manager. I waited until they finished. Then I said, "You're not asking, you're expecting." And the answer is no. I stood up and left. No one followed me. No one called out. That was the last time I saw them in that house. A week later, I got a text from Natalie. "We've decided we won't be repaying the $7,000. Given the circumstances, we believe it was a gift." A gift. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty. They hadn't just taken from me. They had decided I didn't deserve boundaries or rights or basic respect. And now they were rewriting history to make it easier to sleep at night. But they forgot something. It wasn't a gift. I had the wire transfer records, the text messages, the voicemail. I printed them all, and I called a lawyer. There's something surreal about walking into a lawyer's office with a stack of screenshots and bank receipts and saying, "This is what my family did to me." You expect a reaction. Maybe disbelief. But he didn't flinch. He'd seen it before. The transfer receipt, the voice messages from Mark, the text from Natalie, even the ridiculous email from my dad calling me selfish. They were more than enough. He told me flat out, "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is debt, and it's enforceable." We drafted a repayment request. Clear, formal, and signed by him. A letter that made it very obvious. Either pay back the $7,000 within 14 days, or we go to court. I knew it would rattle them. I didn't expect what came next. The reply didn't come from Mark. It came from my father. He didn't just ignore the legal tone. He threw it in the trash. His email to my lawyer accused me of weaponizing a moment of crisis, said I was tearing the family apart for money, and hinted that if I kept going, I'd regret it. It was the same tone he always used when I was a kid. The one that told me I wasn't allowed to stand up for myself without consequences. But I wasn't a kid anymore. I told my lawyer to proceed. File the papers. Let them squirm. The surprise came 4 days later. I was doing laundry when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in me said, "Pick it up." It was my youngest brother, Ryan. I hadn't heard his voice in over a year. He'd moved to Oregon working in tech, kept his distance from all the family drama. I thought he'd washed his hands of us a long time ago. He got straight to it. "Kelly, I heard what's going on. I just want you to know I've seen everything. I believe you, and I don't think you're wrong." I didn't speak right away. I think part of me had forgotten what it felt like to have someone in the family say those words. Then he told me something I didn't expect. They'd added him to a private group chat just before Mark's surgery. A family group thread meant to keep everyone in the loop. Everyone except me. He'd mostly stayed quiet in it. Just watched. He said they'd been talking about me for weeks. At first, it was just passive jabs. Then they started mocking me directly. Natalie had said, "She's too proud to ask for help but expects to be included." It's exhausting. Mark had written, "Let her stew, she'll cave. She always does." And then worse, "She's just bitter. We'll tell people it was a gift. Who's going to take her side? She's always been a drama magnet." My own mother had typed, "She should be grateful we even let her show up." After everything, Ryan took screenshots of it all and sent them to me. I read each message slowly, like peeling off a bandage. What shocked me wasn't what they said. It was how normal it seemed for them. There wasn't a trace of guilt in those messages. Not even a second thought. That's when it hit me. They really believed I didn't matter. That they could take from me, mock me, erase me, and still expect me to stay quiet and kind. Ryan said one more thing before we hung up. "They're panicking now. Mark's lawyer called me. They want to settle quietly. They don't want this going to court." I could hear the hesitation in his voice, like he thought I might jump at the chance to end it all. But I didn't want quiet. I wanted them in the open. I wanted what they'd done written down and stamped by a judge. I wanted to show them that the unimportant one had finally learned how to speak, and that this time I wasn't going away. I told Ryan, "I'm not settling." He paused, then said, "I'll be there when you go to court. Just say the word." Court isn't like in the movies. There's no dramatic music, no final speeches that make everyone cry. It's fluorescent lights, thin carpet, and a small room where the truth either holds up or it doesn't. I showed up early. My lawyer met me at the entrance and walked me in. I don't think I said more than 10 words the whole time. I didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said had already been printed, filed, and time-stamped. Ryan arrived right before we were called in. He looked uncomfortable in a dress shirt, but I could tell he meant it. He gave me a small nod, like, "Whatever happens, I'm here." And that was enough. Mark walked in with Natalie and their attorney. Natalie was in full performance mode. Heels, blazer, folder in hand, like she was the one filing the lawsuit. Mark looked smaller than I remembered. Tired, but not sorry. The case was simple. $7,000 transferred from me to my brother. Verbal promise to repay confirmed in writing and voicemail. No repayment. Clear as day. My lawyer walked the judge through everything methodically, calmly. He presented the evidence like it wasn't even a question. And then, when he introduced the group chat messages Ryan had given me, you could feel the mood shift in the room. Natalie looked blindsided. There it was, in black and white. Let her try. She'll just embarrass herself, and we'll say it was a gift. The judge read it twice, then looked over the rim of his glasses at them, like they were children caught stealing lunch money. Their lawyer tried to recover, argued it was a family matter, that emotions were high during the surgery, that surely this was just a misunderstanding between siblings. But when Mark was asked directly if he had ever told me he'd pay the money back, he said yes. That was the end of it. The judge ruled in my favor. Full repayment, plus a small penalty in filing fees. 30 days or collections would begin. I won. And in that quiet little room with no applause, no cameras, and no one waiting to hug me at the door, I felt nothing. No joy. No satisfaction. Just the kind of exhaustion that sits behind your eyes and doesn't leave for a while. Outside the courthouse, Ryan walked with me to my car. He didn't say anything for a minute. Just leaned against the door and looked out across the parking lot. Then he said, "You were right to make this real. You gave them every chance. They chose this." I nodded, but my stomach was still heavy. Not with guilt, just the weight of knowing it didn't have to be this way. They could have said thank you. They could have said sorry. They could have even lied and said they appreciated it. But instead, they tried to erase what I did and then shame me for not disappearing quietly. The wire transfer came on day 28. From Natalie's account. No note, no call, just the money. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before closing the app. That night, my mom sent me one last message. You've made your decision. So have we. Please don't contact us again. My dad unfollowed me on everything. Mark blocked me. Natalie posted a vague quote about snakes who wear family masks. I didn't react. I just watched it all unfold from a distance. But Ryan stayed. A week after the court ruling, he showed up with pizza and a new board game for the twins. He came back the next weekend, too. Helped me fix a cabinet in the kitchen. Watched a movie with the kids. He didn't say much about the case again. Just acted like family should. And one night, as we sat on the porch after the kids had gone to bed, he looked over and said, "You never stopped being one of us. They just couldn't handle the fact that you stopped needing them." I don't know why, but that's when I finally cried. Not because I lost them, but because I finally understood. Real family isn't who sits at the table. It's who stands beside you when everyone else walks away. After the court case, life didn't explode. It just peeled back, like a wall had been torn down, and behind it was only quiet. No phone calls, no late-night texts, no awkward birthdays or guilt-laced reminders from my mother about not drifting too far, just silence. Thick, deliberate silence. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase it. Lily and Jonah stopped asking about their grandparents. I think they felt the shift before I did. Kids always know. I never explained what happened. I figured one day, when they were older, they'd ask. And when they did, I'd tell them the truth. Not out of spite, but because they deserve to know what it costs to keep your dignity. Mark never spoke to me again. Natalie blocked me on everything. My parents stayed loyal to them, which didn't surprise me. What hurt more was realizing they had probably been waiting for an excuse to cut me out entirely, and I'd finally given them one they could use without guilt. They didn't want me to stand up for myself. They wanted me to stay quiet and be grateful for crumbs, but I wasn't hungry anymore. A few months passed, then a season. Ryan stayed close. Every weekend or so, he'd come over, help around the house, bring things for the kids. Never out of pity, just presents. One night, we were putting together a bookshelf I'd bought secondhand, and I said, half joking, "Do you think they'll ever talk to me again?" He didn't laugh. He just looked at me and said, "Do you want them to?" I didn't answer, but I thought about that question for days, because the truth is, the heartbreak wasn't just losing them. It was accepting that I never really had them the way I thought I did. They loved the version of me that didn't ask for anything. The one who showed up quietly, paid her way, made casseroles, and stayed in the corner. The moment I stepped forward, the illusion cracked. Around the same time, I finally dipped into the rest of my savings and moved us into a slightly bigger apartment. Nothing fancy, but for the first time, the twins had their own rooms. I painted Jonah's walls blue and Lily's yellow. We picked out curtains together. It felt like claiming something, like starting over on our own terms. I picked up more freelance contracts, leaned into work, tightened our budget again. It was hard, but it was my hard. Not the kind that drains you for people who don't see you. The kind that builds something slowly, honestly. And then came the envelope. No return address. No note. No explanation. Just a folded money order inside for $1,000. In the top corner of the envelope, tiny writing in Mark's handwriting. From me, not her. I didn't know what to feel. It wasn't enough to change anything. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't nothing either. It sat somewhere in that gray space where broken people live when they can't say sorry but still want to be seen. I put it in a drawer, never cashed it, never responded. I didn't need his money. I needed him to understand what he did, and $1,000 wasn't going to buy that. The holidays came and went. No cards, no calls. I didn't expect any. What I did get was a visit from Ryan on Christmas Eve. He brought presents for the twins, sat on the floor helping them build a Lego set, and stayed until midnight. We watched the snow fall from the couch, while the kids finally slept. Just quiet conversation, peppermint tea, and the peace of knowing someone chose to stay. Before he left, I asked him why he'd never picked a side all these years. He said, "I didn't think I had to. I thought we were all on the same team." Then he looked at me and said, "I was wrong, but I won't make that mistake again." I didn't cry. Not then. But later that night, when I saw the kids curled up together under the tree lights, I let myself feel all of it. The hurt, the release, the sharp edge of closure, because they never gave me a seat at the table, but I made one. From me, for my kids, for anyone who chooses love over silence. And this time, no one gets to take it away. Sometimes I still drive past my parents' neighborhood. Not often, and never on purpose. But when I do, I feel nothing. Not anger, not longing, just a kind of stillness. Like watching an old house that used to be yours, but now belongs to strangers. I wonder sometimes if Mark ever thinks about it. If Natalie scrolls past photos of my kids and feels the slightest flicker of shame. I doubt it. People like them learn to rewrite things quickly, to make themselves the heroes in stories where they were never even the ones bleeding. But I'm done rewriting myself to make others comfortable. I've got enough now. Not in the bank. In the mirror. In the laughter echoing through our small apartment. In Ryan, who stayed. In two kids who know what love feels like, even when it looks different than they expected. And every year on New Year's Eve, I set out 3 chairs. Not because I'm expecting anyone, but because we no longer stand and watch. We eat. We belong right where we are.